Commissioner Littlejohn, we have a quorum. It's 3 o'clock. If you're
Okay.
ready.
I am ready. Let's go.
Right. I will go ahead and do a roll call.
Yeah, it's I guess I'll be official. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and with it, proceed with roll call.
All right, Dorsey,
Here.
Eldridge, Hoffer, she's online, but I didn't hear her speak. Larson,
Yeah, here.
Littlejohn,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
and Thomas.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum.
All right. All right. Move us on to item B, public comment. I guess I'm sensing that there's nobody there, or you guys don't have anybody
there's-
online.
Correct. There's no one in the room and no one online that has raised their hand to indicate they would like to comment.
Okay. I'll move us on to item C, approve the minutes. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to go ahead and review the minutes. Not, I'll give us a second or two, and then I would entertain a motion to go ahead and approve the minutes.
I move the minutes be approved as written. Gene Dorsey here.
Allison Smith, KDOT, I second that motion.
All right, so first and second out there. All right, if we can go ahead and proceed with a roll call vote.
Yep, Dorsey,
Aye.
Eldridge, Hoffer,
He's on mute.
okay. Larson,
Aye.
Littlejohn,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
and Thomas.
I'm staying.
Okay, motion carries 4-0 with 2 abstentions.
All right. Okay, I'll move us on to item D, and I'll let you go ahead and drive with the first one.
All right, that is me. We are I'm ready. Just a second. Share my screen, doing all the things. All right, we are presenting to you our 2026 Unified Planning Work Program. Currently, I'm looking at page 5 of that plan because I want to highlight some of the primary major planning activities that we have planned for 2026. That includes implementation of our Vision Zero work, continued development of of a countywide bikeway plan update and adoption of a Lawrence Bikes plan. An update to the Lawrence, Eudora, Baldwin City Safe Routes to School plans and the Lawrence Pedestrian Plan. Participation in the North Lawrence Corridor Study for transportation planning consistency. Development of TIP amendments as needed. And typical transportation 2050 performance reporting and implementation work. And in addition to beginning the process in late 2026 to plan for the update to T2050 that's set to be approved in March of 2028. During our since we posted this for public comment and received no public comments, TAC unanimously approved the document we had attached at their meeting. In the meantime, one of our partners notified us and we realized that we were missing a specific task for some of our planned work that we noted in terms of some revisions we intend to do to the ITS plan based on feedback from stakeholders, and it should be a more administrative in process. It's not a big process of update based on some of the things we've heard so far, and so we're anticipating doing that in first quarter. But I'm showing you what I would like to off the floor today propose as an addition of a text in the task list here under the tasks up for long range transportation planning. This hasn't been seen by the public or the TAC, but it was intended in the work in the earlier part of the document. When we talk about ITS plan, we talk about amending this plan in 2026. So I'm just missing it in the task list. So I'm be happy to entertain any questions you have about our planned work proposed, and this requested addition to fix an error that something we missed for today's conversation.
Jessica, it's Allison at KDOT.
Yes.
I might just change the first word,
Yeah.
from revised to revise.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
cool.
Okay.
Cool. Any questions for Jessica on this? All right. I'm not hearing any. If not, I guess I would entertain a motion on the plan itself. I guess the action here is to go ahead and approve the 2026 Unified Planning Work Program and
Yeah,
authorize.
and
Sorry,
for
go
point of
ahead.
information, there's no public in the room or online.
Okay, cool.
Allison Smith with KDOT. I would move to approve the 2026 UPWP with the addition of the ITS architecture language.
Thank you, Allison.
This is Gene Dorsey. I'll second it.
All right, there's a first and a second out here, and I'll go ahead with a roll call vote.
Okay, Dorsey,
Aye.
Hoffer, Larson,
Aye.
Littlejohn,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously with one abstention.
All right. Thank you all. Move us on to item 2, the 2026 Safety and Transit Safety Performance Targets.
Second. We have proceeded to coordinate with our public transit staff and KDOT to collect the data that we needed for our annual process to update safety targets for both sets of measures. And I have a quick presentation I'm hoping to share. Okay. So for crash safety, we have 5 federal safety measures that we set annual targets for. That's number of fatalities, rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, number of serious injuries, rate of serious injuries per 100 million VMT, and number of non-motorized fatal and serious injuries. The MPOs have 2 options when it comes to setting targets. They could establish specific targets for the metropolitan planning area or agree to support state targets. And at this point, MPOs are not assessed or are penalized by federal highways for failing to meet these targets. Our MPO has historically chosen to set our own targets. And additionally, when we show the measures, report them by road maintained by, so we can have additional depth of conversation about location of crashes and who maintains and owns the roadways of which those are occurring in our region. We have historically set those based on what trends we've observed, and then made that projection based on those points for annual year crashes. In 23-24, we met 2 of the 5 targets with that method. Since this year, in 2025, we've adopted Vision Zero. So these proposed targets that we proposed for 2026 project linear reductions in crashes to meet the Vision Zero by 2050 goals. And so that's a linear reduction in crashes and what we would project as those targets to achieve that vision. This gives you a little history. So the newest data, 2024 data is the newest complete year of data that was included in what we show in the data, and I'll show that in a second and more in depth. But here I want to show you for 2024, now that the 2024 data is complete and we can look at it compared to the 24 targets. We had 2 measures, rate of fatalities and number of fatalities, that were below the target we set for 2024. And then we had 3 of the targets, which is serious injuries, rate of serious injuries, and the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, where the target was not met for that year. And that's just to give you an idea of kind of where we're at on track. And again, that's consistent with what I was talking about in 23 and 24, where we were already with our projections about what was happening, not seeing some of those targets meeting. So the 25 targets are based on that same trend. And after we receive the end of year 25 crash data, which typically happens in the summer of the following year, once that data set is finalized, we will go back and report that for a future year. Let me go ahead and pull up the targets. And again, as I mentioned, this represents our linear forecast. So we're looking at, if we're looking at by 2050, a Vision Zero targets, we're looking at projected 25 would be still 6 fatalities. And then the targets are based on a rolling average. So the rolling average and our 26 target would be 6.4 fatalities in that data set.
Why? That was one of the things. Why would that be higher? That we set that target than what we're showing?
Because that 25 data is based on 1 year and the target is based on 5 years. The target is a 5-year data point. So even in 25, if it was only 6, if you go back and look at 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, there was 3 years with 7 fatalities. So when you average all of those, it still can equal more than what you anticipate in a single year.
Okay.
So we're in all of these data sets, they're prescriptive from the federal government. They're telling you how to calculate all of these performance measures. And they're doing that because they want consistency across the nation for all MPOs who are reporting data. So it's based on 5 years. That takes out some of the if something happens in a year and you have a very severe thing, or you have a drop and you have, some of those annual fluctuations that can happen. In 2020, you can see we were moving in a trend, like we had 18 fatalities in 2020. And this is the first year where that's dropping off year average. We are anticipating a down trend in what our target is, but it still be more than what the single is because it's based on a 5-year average.
Okay, and what is the map?
So we get this data back from Kansas Department of Transportation, and oftentimes that data goes spatially, and sometimes they're in the reporting that they give us, there is not adequate descriptive information for us to be able to tell where that crash occurred. So it could be on sometimes it's on listed 2 roads and those roads don't even intersect. And so it becomes a lot, we include them because not including them doesn't show that there is not something that happened. Sometimes those are mapped not in our county, but attributed to our county. So there are some things like that are just anomalies in the data sets that are provided to us by KDOT.
Okay.
And we are trying to account for those in that table by showing that it's showing up as part of our data set. We can't attribute a location to it to tell you who maintains the road. Yeah. Okay. So we receive also vehicle miles traveled projections and calculations for each year from the DOT. And based on those, we are seeing a downward trend in what we would both project and what we would anticipate for our target of 0.6 for fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. As we look at serious injuries, you can see the trend in this since the 2015 has increased over time. You see that's we're kind of having we're looking at, you can look at both 5-year averages where you're seeing some decrease, but increased in the annual rate. And so that is a consideration in this, but looking at our target of reduction to Vision Zero by 2050, we're looking at a projected 25 or 35, excuse me, in 2025 with a 35 and 8/10 target for our 5-year average. And that is increasing based on the projection and the data. Sometimes these when we're looking at them, we're looking at serious injuries, and then also by VMT, some of those, the VMT can impact that as a factor. So
sometimes I don't go into as much detail, but so why is Marion Township left off this?
If the list doesn't include you, that means you don't have any crashes for that time period. So there's a lot, you'll notice like in some of the lists, there's only 6 entities included. It's because those are the only entities that had those crashes. So we didn't, and if it's just zeros, it doesn't get included it doesn't show up in this list.
We do a great job out there.
Yes, so you will see townships are all together, they're merged together in some of these data sets. And that it's about local ownership in that case where, in terms of causation. This really came about though as part of the conversation early on in the measures of why we list roads, because the conversation and looking at the volume of crashes in all of these places that are attributable to roadways that involve KDOT or Kansas Turnpike. And so the local conversation here was, yes, this is our rate, but some of it's attributable to things that are outside of our control. And I think that's everyone's conversation when we look at it, particularly with our technical advisory committee, because we're looking at crashes that, Douglas County or the city of Lawrence or in any of the other communities or jurisdictions where, each of them control their own pot of money and priority projects and resources in terms of being able to address our goal to Vision Zero. It's going to take everybody buying in, and particularly some people buying in more ways, with additional investment based on crash and ownership. So the rate of serious injuries per 100 million VMT, you can see our projection is anticipated in this space to be a slight reduction, probably not significant in 2026, but a lower rate in 25.
Jessica,
Yes.
I have a question. What constitutes a serious injury?
Yeah, so I'm going to scroll to the definition that's in this packet because I wouldn't want to try to define it, but KDOT has defined this. They changed the definition in 2019, and it includes all of these basically basic things that they say: the suspected serious injury other than fatal, but it includes one or more of the following of this list. So lacerations resulting in exposure of tissue or blood loss, broken or distorted extremities, crush injuries, suspected skull or chest, abdominal injuries, burns, unconsciousness when somebody's taken from the scene, or paralysis. So I don't define all those. I'm sure those all have definitions in among themselves too, but that is what our law enforcement and fire medical professionals are using when determining these in terms of injuries and how that changed from the previous definition that they had. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. All right, and then our fifth measure for safety, looking at number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries on public roadways. You can see the trends. Well, it looks like we had a top year or a high injury and fatality year in 2017. And since we had a decrease and then an increase, it looks like, we're in this kind of stabilized place. I looked at, as you start looking at this data, we haven't looked at it all for 2025, but besides to just see some of the high profile fatalities that we've seen in the news related to bicyclists and pedestrians in this space. But these are reported as a whole, and you can see we're projecting here because there's, the linear projection to zero eventually. We're looking at a projection of 6 fatalities and serious injuries in 25 and a 5 8/10 target for the average of a 5-year average in this space. So, like I said, we define all of these. Then we also show a map of all the different roadway ownerships. So you can kind of understand in terms of volume of roadways and mileage, what that might mean in terms of that spatial assessment. We have also, get to one other resource. I want to just mention while we're in this space, talking about our work for safety, that since you've seen our Vision Zero work last, we have had the opportunity to finish and publish our dashboard. And I'm just going to show you this before we get into some of the transit targets. So you can find this from our Vision Zero link on the webpage. This is an opportunity for the public to be able to go in and look at our crash data. You can sort by crash year. You have the ability to look at a specific city or location. You can look at certain crash severities. You can choose all of, you can look at the whole data set for the year. It allows you to look in a lot more detail. If you want to, you can kind of have to tool around in this app, but if you click on this what looks like a little stack, it has all the layers. So if you want to turn on our TIP projects and see where we have roadway projects that involve safety, you can look at that compared to different crashes. You can click on either the project and find out more information about work we're doing in that space, or you can click on any of the crashes and also inquire deeper and more in depth about attributes that were involved in that crash location. So I just wanted to share that. If you have any questions, please, we'd be happy to walk you through that on a one-on-one if you want to spend more time with that, or if that information is valuable to you in any work that you're doing. We have our safe routes to school routes on here. You can look at heat maps. We have copies of the high injury network. So what was developed in the Vision Zero plan. There's a lot of things that's a valuable data source.
Who enters all this?
Well, the crash data is provided to us by KDOT. And so we get that data spatially from them. And then the other data sets are different things that the city maintains. This is a map dashboard that ADIA is on our team will be responsible for maintaining and updating annually when we get new data sets or we have changes to any of the layers available. Do you want to take a stop and talk about transportation safety targets, the crash safety targets, or would you like me to proceed into our transit safety conversation?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I would proceed.
Yeah, I would probably say that as well.
Okay. One second. Sorry. I have too many things open. I got to share lots of different things. Okay. Okay, so we worked with our transit partners at Lawrence Transit to receive their information related to their 2024 injury data. They report all 7 of these metrics for their safety targets. So fatalities, of which they had none. They also then get calculated by VMT. Injuries, which they had none, also calculated by VMT. Safety events, which there were none, also calculated by VMT. And then they have a system reliability metric, which is vehicle revenue miles. So the miles that they have of vehicles in revenue service by failures. And so they met their previous targets in all of these regards, and we are proposing 2026 targets that maintain zeros for all of the targets, and then reduce the system reliability measures to 40,000. So that they would have 40,000 vehicle revenue miles per failure. So, and you can see they're exceeding that in that space. So those are all of the measures that we have proposed for safety and transit safety. We released these for a public comment period, 15 days in late October, and we didn't receive any comments, public comments. The MPO Technical Advisory Committee recommended approval at their November 4th meeting. I'd be happy to entertain any conversation you may want to have or questions at this time.
Any questions?
Did I see in this that the demand routes are going to be charged $3 or something?
You probably saw that in the news. I don't think that's included in anything as part of our conversation today. But they have 2 service types that they classify and report this data under. Their fixed route service and then their demand response service. So anything, injuries or incidences that would happen would be reported in those 2 classifications for these measures. But they are separately working on, or they have approved a fair proposal for their demand response service that's not paratransit. And they will be proceeding with that in 2026.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions? All right, and I'm suspecting there's not any public comment there online for this?
Correct. There's no one in the room and no one online who wishes to provide public comment.
Okay, then I would go ahead and entertain a motion. Don't all jump in at once.
I would move to approve the performance targets for 2026. This is Allison with KDOT.
Thank you, Allison. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Charlie Thomas.
Thank you, Charlie. All right, first and a second, Jessica, if you would go with the roll call.
Yeah, Dorsey,
Yeah,
Hoffer,
Yes.
okay, Larson. You're on mute.
Yes,
Okay, Littlejohn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously 6-0.
Thank you all. All right, taking us to item 3, the tip amendment.
CC gets this one.
It was good to see, it was good to see CC for just a moment.
CC, that's me. Hello all. Yes, taking item number 3, the Transportation Improvement Amendment 3. So this is the 3rd scheduled amendment to the 2025 to 2028 TIP. The TIP implements the Long Range Transportation Plan T2050, and the amendment is associated with the addition and revisions of costs and schedules for roadway projects and bike ped infrastructure. The document was put out for a 15-day public comment from October 10th to October 25th, and no public comments were received. I'm showing my screen at the amendment summary to walk you through the 7 amended projects, 1 new project, and 3 removed projects in the proposed TIP before you today. The new project proposed is at the top of the screen, tip number 610. It is a Douglas County KDOT project where they plan to apply a high friction surface treatment to portions of RS 210 and RS 209. The amended projects are tip number 143 for the US 56 reconstruction. That was changed due to a revision of the grand total. Tip number 152, K33 reconstruction in Douglas County, also revised their grand total. Tip number 243, the US 56 improvements to Eisenhower Street to First Street. They also adjusted their grand total. All of these were mostly due to accounting for real costs. Then tip number 250, Bob Billings expansion, East 800 Road to K10, change the comments to better align with the construction plan. Tip number 519, Safe Routes to School along Osdall, change the comments to show that it was a completed project in 2025. Tip number 524, Safe Routes to School in Lawrence, moved construction from 2026 to 2027. And then tip number 607, the Massachusetts Street project, changed their grand total to account for real costs. Additionally, there were 3 removed projects, as I mentioned before. Tips number 516, 521, and 522. These were for various segments of the Lawrence Loop, which were not explicitly funded in the CIP. Rather, the CIP funds Lawrence Loop extension, but is an unnamed project in scope. Should the project scope be defined further, it will be included in a future tip. Additional information on these projects can be found in the tip amendment agenda item, and the Technical Advisory Committee recommended unanimous approval for this tip amendment at their meeting on November 4th. We're requesting that the Policy Board approve Amendment 3 of the fiscal year 25 to 28 tip, and should it be approved, it would be forwarded to KDOT for inclusion in the January state tip amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Any questions for Cece?
Cece, this is Charlie. I am sure I should have understood this. Tell me in as simple a terms that I could understand about the bike routes.
So you're talking about Lawrence Loop?
Yeah,
Lawrence Loop in prior CIPs explicitly funded 3 different segments. Now they're lumping them together in one pot of money and saying in the 25 to 28 CIP, at some point there is a goal to do Lawrence Loop project, but they're not sure which segment. So they, instead of explicitly saying which one, they just lumped it all into one, and when it gets defined, we'll include it in the tip.
but it will be completed.
There
Or
is money to work towards completion. I can't say exactly what the scope of the project's going to be.
The
Okay,
entire funding for the entire completion, I do not believe is in CIP currently.
okay,
But they have money for additional segments.
okay,
It's just not sure which one. It's not specified. So because it's not specified, it's just a lump of money. We're gonna not leave it in the tip until it gets
but
specified.
one of those parts should be completed under the new funding.
Well, there's enough money, I think, to do some engineering work. There's not an entire amount of money at this point to fund even the construction of it. So that's why also it's like
Okay.
the tip is supposed to represent a list of committed projects where the money is connected, it's tied and obligated to that project. And at this point, there is some money, but it's not enough. It's also contingent on additional future grant funding. And so it's speculative enough that it no longer belongs in the tip.
Okay,
But should a project come up, it will be before you as an inclusion following tip.
thank you.
Okay. Not hearing any further questions. And as I said before, it didn't look like there's any folks there with public comment here online. That point, thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Allison Smith, KDOT. I would move to approve tip amendment number 3 for inclusion in the statewide tip.
I have a first by Allison,
I'd second that.
second by Charlie. All right, let's go with the roll call vote.
Dorsey, Hoffer,
yes,
Larson,
Yes.
Littlejohn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Thank you all. Move us on to item 4, Unified Planning Work Program. And looks like it's a discussion item.
This is a discussion item. We're just sharing with you. We made an administrative revision to the 2025 UPWP, and it didn't change any of, just a second, I'm getting it pulled up. It did not change any of our funding amounts. It only changed the way that we showed the percentages based on the work. So historically, our UPWP has been entirely 80-20, meaning 80% of it is funded by grant dollars, and 20% is funded by match. In the most recent federal legislation, there is now work that is eligible to be billed to the feds at 100% under complete streets. And so in that work, we now show the difference of those amounts by task. And so all we did was, instead of showing the overall amount at 80-20 and then showing that extra 20% amount that they were now paying, we're showing by task what the breakdown is. And so you can see in the complete streets task, there's no local funding. It's 100 up to this amount is 100% funded by our federal consolidated planning grant money. So it didn't change the overall amount of money we're receiving. It didn't change the amount of match that we're requiring. It was just us presenting numbers in a way that showed it by task. And so we did that as an administrative revision because it's not changing any context of the plan. It doesn't change any of the amounts. And so we revised that and posted it, and we're now notifying you that we've done so for transparency.
Hey. Doesn't change how I voted. What is the, and I didn't understand that when I read it, about the money swap or the.
Oh, in the tip,
Yeah,
advanced construction, is that what you're talking about? Where it says AC? So separate to this, not at all affiliated with the Unified Planning Work Program. There are some projects that use advanced construction. So the entity doing the project chooses to pay up front with their money, local money often, and then later reimburse it for federal money. So it's a way where if they don't have the federal money available for a few years, that they can get a project started and going where it show that they intend to spend federal money on it. So then when they get to the year they have the federal money, they convert that local money to federal money.
okay.
So it is called advanced construction. It allows them to advance projects before they have their, a lot of these a lot of the funds they get are formula funds. So they know they're going to get an amount every year. Well, they're allocating a future year's amount to that project, but they want to get started on it. So somebody has to pay real cash up front.
Okay.
So that's noted in a project detail because it has to be in the tip and approved for them to go back and flip it to federal money.
Okay.
It's a financing mechanism.
And in the Douglas County region, it's typically going to be KDOT that utilizes that financing mechanism.
Because it is
primarily.
risky. In the future, if that
Yeah.
money is not
Yeah.
there, then whatever entity that paid is on the hook for that
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but the UPWP, again, that was the same amount of money we approved in our regular UPWP. Nothing has changed in that regard. We just needed to show the difference between the 80-20% splits and the work task that was 100%. So. Any other questions about that?
Not hearing or seeing any. All right, thank you guys for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it. I'll go ahead, since there's no more, I'll go ahead and bring us on to item E, the quick updates.
Okay.
Jessica?
Yeah, just two really quick items. We provided you links to the update website for the Lawrence Bikes plan. We've been meeting with the steering committee that you established to do that work, and we are continuing underway in our work of finishing after public open house 2 and some additional engagement to share that with the steering committee and continue to work through the development of the plan. We also have kicked off safe routes to school planning work and worked with all of the public school districts to survey, do a parent survey. And so that has just closed in the last couple weeks, and we will begin processing those survey responses and developing some additional content for future engagement with the community in those spaces. But the link to that project page is also available for you.
All right, cool, good to hear.
Do we have any?
Oh, go ahead.
All right. Do we have any data on whether bicycle transportation or fun, just whatever, is increasing in Douglas County, going down? Do we have any data?
We do in some regard. It's not a robust network of data. As part of our Safe Routes to School program, every year they do travel tallies twice a year in the spring, the fall semester, and then the spring semester to do a self-report of students in the classroom, of any classroom that participates or schools that participate, of percentage of students riding, and that's something we can share. We get that data. Public health, our partners at Public Health coordinate all that process to collect that data. And so we've seen changes over time in that. There's been some changes since the school closures and different changes in that regard in terms of kids now walk and bike further. And so some schools are more impacted by percentages of kids walking and biking. For other multimodal counts, like bicycle and pedestrian counts, we used to have a manual program where we did counts. The city of Lawrence has acquired bicycle and pedestrian counters that they can use to collect bicycle and pedestrian count data. There's a tube counter for bike data and a video, which requires a processing fee unless you want to watch it as a human and tally to do bike ped counts. And so that is a resource we have. It is done sometimes for before and after of specific projects and in areas, but anecdotally, I do not have it's increased over time. The census, of course, has some data set about journey to work and some other stuff, but the accuracy of that, I think, is always in question because it takes a big move to move the needle. Points that we have. If you look up like bike ped counts,
You just have a feel for it rather than.
I wouldn't feel comfortable making any assumptions in that space. I think, it's hit or miss. I think it varies a lot what's happening in terms of density, in terms of people making trips. I think nationally, we know that the biggest increase to transit ridership and bike and ped is when fuel prices increase. And so, I mean, there's extra economic pressure in this economy on a lot of households and people. And so I would anticipate that is impacting people's choice about whether or not they have the availability to a vehicle or a personal vehicle or one they can carpool with. But more than that, I can't speak
and
to.
Bus ridership over the last year, 2 years, up, down.
But there had been some. It's getting close back to pre-COVID numbers for all the providers, though some of the more recent numbers I've seen. And it's increased with fare free. But that's also contingent because those numbers are reported, but there has been changes to service. And in some places, some of the providers have reduced service. So it's not apples to apples necessarily.
And I saw each bus costs a little over $1 million to switch to electric. Is that right?
I can't give you that number off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just looking
Yeah.
at the stuff in there. and-
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't, they have to plan those so far out.
Yeah.
I don't know all their numbers for that.
All right. Any further questions? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and move us on to item F, other business.
Yeah, I would just like to take a quick second to thank Commissioner Littlejohn and Commissioner Larson for their service to the MPO Policy Board. My next announcement is going to be that we don't have a December meeting, but also that their work in that space. We've appreciated having you in your role to help us guide the MPO.
You're
That's
welcome.
very kind. That's very kind of you. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Yes.
And along with additional thank yous, I did want to say thank you on behalf of KDOT for everybody that came to our local consults that we held in October. I know I saw Jessica, Commissioner Littlejohn, David Cronin, Transit. So having your input was very helpful and very informative. So again, thank you for taking time out to come to those meetings. So thank you.
Went to the one in Kansas City, and what I've learned from that is bring a busload of people next
Mm.
time.
I just saw numbers today, sir, that we had about 350 people show up to the Kansas City local consult. So it was standing room only. We had to modify our plan for everything. So we had an extraordinary turnout for that one. So yeah. And also slippery floors are an accident waiting to happen. So it'll be hosted in 2 years someplace else as well. So but all of your information and insights were very helpful.
Maybe in 2 years, you could have it at the new conference center near KU.
That's always a possibility. Yeah.
It'll hold up to 1,000.
Yeah. Well, we have the parking is the question.
Oh, you got a good point.
Yes. As a Lawrence resident, I've kind of kept tabs on that. But yeah, but just to say thank you for sharing your information with us.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for the invite, and I would second Gene on that. Numbers help because it's a numbers game in that thing. So,
Yeah.
so. All right. If that, anybody else got anything to add? Well, I guess we don't have another meeting in December, so this is the last hurrah for 2025.
Yep, we'll be in touch sometime in January.
All right. Well, I'll just say thank you all for your participation, and it's been my pleasure to be a part of this board. And I wish you all the best. And yeah, thank you. I've appreciated you all.
Thank you for your work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
All right. With that, Jessica, I'll let you sign us out.
Okay. Thank you. We're done for the day. Have a great day.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.